Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about bug out bags. And we did a bug out bag episode, maybe even 2 bug out bag episodes over the years. But what I found is I've actually changed kind of my opinion of what should really be in a bug out bag. I think it's more... my definition of bugging out kind of has changed. A bug out bag should be like, oh shit, we got to get out of here. And I have a bag full of my essentials and what I'm going to need and when I'm going to go. Basically, my original bug out bag, the original episode, we kind of had everything, including the kitchen sink in there. And the idea was you could kind of restart and rebuild the world from a Navy sea bag or, you know, some kind of big backpack. And that was true. And that's basically what we covered. And I think that has its place. But I don't think that's really what bugging out really is. And I think as preppers, we can be better than the other bag. And what I mean by that is basically we should have a fallback position in mind. And maybe we need to cache some stuff there. And even if that's not another property or it's, you know, whatever, but even if we just cache something in the woods somewhere to go to, you know, a day's hike away or, you know, maybe even a mile off the property, who knows. But a bug out bag should really be for, oh shit, we got a bug out. So let's kind of, you know, just jump right in and dig in deep with that. And kind of discuss what should be in a bug out bag. Now, basically, like I said, I think a bug out bag should be something that can get you from your house to your next location and without any problems, and you should be able to function with it. So some kind of, maybe, I like to think of it as like a 3-day go bag kind of thing, like almost like a get home bag but expanded, you know, a little bit, and that's the idea. So let's talk about what would be in there. Basically you're gonna need some kind of, you know, it's food, shelter, water, and pretty much that's it. Maybe, you know, protection, some kind of self-defense. Right. So let's talk about shelter. What are you thinking for shelter, Kevin?
Well, I mean, you have to think about how many people are coming with you, hypothetically, right? If you've got one kid and a wife, then maybe you want to think about a 3-man tent. If it's just you, I don't know. How much of a man are you? You know, is it a 1-man tent? Is it a tarp and a little bit of rope? One of the things that I think that is lost on a lot of conversations about bug out bags is it has to be made specifically for you. You know, if you're in, you know, if you're in the, you know, if you're in California somewhere where there are a bunch of wildfires every year, that might be a different bag than somebody that's on the East Coast worried about a hurricane, right? Right. You're going to have different things in there, but I think that there's a bare minimum of things that you want in your bug out bag. And shelter, you know, is obviously one of them. If it's going to take you 3 days to get to your location, that's what you should be planning for, is 72 hours, really, with a bug out bag. You're going to want to have something that's going to keep you dry overnight. and maybe you're planning on bugging out in your car, and you're going to sleep in the car, and that's just how it's going to be, and you're not going to worry about a tent. But I think that having a tent would just be the bare minimum of what you want.
Or some kind of tarp and stuff that you feel you can build a shelter that, is adequate for you.
Right.
Those of us who've been in the Boy Scouts and toughed it out a little bit, I know you can come up with a pretty decent shelter if you make a little effort to figure out how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that having a tarp underneath you and over you can make a big difference, over, nothing, as opposed to making a shelter out of sticks and no tarp. It's all good unless it's raining or just rained or, something like that.
Right.
Another thing you touched on when you were saying, it depends who goes with you. I think realistically, everybody should have their own bug out bag, every member of the family. But again, if you have small children or something and you think that's going to be an issue with them carrying stuff, then obviously you need to pack your bag accordingly to, accommodate.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think another thing that would be necessary with it, we're talking about food, water, shelter. When it comes to water, every person is going to use 1 gallon a day. That should just be your standard. But you also have to remember, 3 days worth of water is 25 pounds of 25 extra pounds of weight. And if you have your bug out bag set up and you've just got bottled water in there, it might not be in great shape by the time you grab your bag and go if it's been sitting in there for 2 years. So what I would recommend as far as that goes is have a canteen or have something that you can fill up. They have camel packs. I go with a camel pack, and that's good, but it's not really enough. So what I would recommend with a bug out bag is have a container you can fill up right before you go, but also have water purification tablets. They're really, don't take up much space, don't take up much weight, and they last a long time. Or a water filter, which they can be a little expensive, but you can get into a decent water filter for $30. It's not it's not going to be top of the line, but it'll do its job.
Right. Those Life straws are pretty much like $10 a piece. I don't really love them. I don't think they're the greatest thing. I actually like Sawyer water filters. They make one that screws onto a regular water bottle. So your Dasani, Aquafina, Poland Spring, whatever kind of water you have, it'll just screw right onto the top and you kind of drink it through.
Right.
I'd have to agree 100% with what you said of the big thing. People don't have containers to store water. And that's, when they go to travel, and that's a big thing. So again, my bag has a bladder in it. They just make it really convenient and easy. But I also have several water bottles. I think I have like 3 water bottles and then the bladder in my bag. But 100%, like you said, water purification. You can buy little things of bleach. They have these like little paper packets that are an additive that you add to the water bottle. If you just look for water treatment on Amazon or something. And the Sawyer, not very expensive. I think, like you said, I think even the better the Sawyer are like $30. It's not a big deal. The water treatment stuff, you can buy 1 million of those little treatment packets for I don't know, it's like $5.
Yeah, and what I would say is,
or more.
If you only have access to kind of dirty water, the best bet would be to have some sort of a water filter. But if you have those water purification tablets, and you just filter that water through, I don't know, maybe your shirt, get the leaves and sticks and that sort of stuff out of there, and then add the purification tablet, that should be okay. I've used
the
those
purification tablet.
Go ahead.
doesn't get rid of toxins is the thing,
Right.
So yeah, if you have some kind of, you're outside a chemical plant and I added bleach to it, well, yeah, that's not gonna help.
Right.
But just the same, you could a good filter that's going to do it. But like Kevin said, there's a million ways to try and filter the water first, then add the bleach to it. The big thing is to realize you got to add that purification tablet and let it sit. Usually they recommend like 30 minutes, for it to do something, and actually kill all the bacteria that might be in the water.
Right. You have to give it time to do its work. 100%. Now, when it comes to food, I like to keep in my bag. I like to keep some like freeze dried stuff. The Mountain House meals are pretty good. Anything that you can add hot water to is great because then you don't have to carry the weight. Getting a can of like a chili or something like that. Half of that weight of that can is the metal and the water that's already in the chili. Depending on where you are,
Right.
if you're in Southern California, you might not be coming across a whole lot of water, right? So it's really going to depend
Right.
again on where you're at and where you're bugging out too. But it is one of those things that if you're going to be able to access water, you can boil it and add it to a freeze dried meal. You can clean the water and make a meal at the same time, and that's definitely worthwhile. I know most of the MREs. I don't know how many of our listeners actually have had MREs or not, but they come with that little heater bag. You add water to it and it
Yes.
heats up, and it does its thing, and it'll heat up your food. Rocket stoves are great for that sort of stuff. Even just starting a regular fire and having a good metal cup to boil water in. There's a million ways to do it, but whatever's right for you. I like the rocket stoves; they're great. But if you're trying to conserve on weight and you're really good at starting fires, maybe that's not the best bet.
Right. Right. You definitely do want to throw some lighters in there. It just makes it so much easier. Why
Yeah,
fight with, I can use flint and steel and go on forever, but damn, a lighter's a lot freaking easier.
Yeah.
Also, I would say Stanley Cook sets are amazing. They make really small ones that are basically, you can boil like 2 cups of water, and they make a little bit bigger one that's nice. You decide what you're willing to carry and what's right for you. When I pack them, I actually put a couple bouillon cubes in there, and I throw I throw instant coffee. Other people put like tea bags, that kind of thing in there.
Yeah.
So that way, hey, I already have some coffee, some tea, whatever, and a little flavor to stuff. As far as food, I love the freeze dried. It stays forever. You can get a couple of packets of things you can throw in there. I actually had bought at one of the camping stores. They had like a 2,000 calorie like granola bar kind of thing. Like it's just a big block that is just high calories and full of nutrients and whatever. I threw that in there. It's,
and let me just say,
it's better than
that is
starving.
that's great for an emergency. But they really taste awful, those things. And starving to death
You can get
is a
things
lot worse
moving.
than having to eat that bar. I'll tell you that. But just beware. I wouldn't stock up on 6 months supply of those things unless you really just hate yourself and don't like pooping ever. But I mean, whatever.
Well,
But also one of the things that
teach their own.
one of the things that I think is important is when it comes to bugging out and getting your bag and getting out of there, you might want to take 5 minutes and go through your refrigerator and cabinet and find anything that would be great to throw in the bag on top of everything. Having fresh fruit and fresh vegetables for the first couple of days might be great if you have them sitting right there on the counter ready to go. Whatever it is, it might be easier to grab grab some stuff that, maybe it doesn't have a 6 month or a 6 year shelf life and you don't want to keep it in your bag, in your bug out bag, but grabbing some stuff like that on your way out would really be great. And I think a lot of the ideas about bug out bags is that you're going to have an emergency and you have to leave right now. But for the most part, you're going to have a day or two where you're going to be thinking about whether or not you're going to go and what needs to be in that bug out bag. And what you already have, in there is great, but there might be some stuff that's a little less long term that you might want to grab the day before. One of those things that I want to talk about real quick is legal documents. Your birth certificates, driver's licenses, IDs, any of that sort of stuff. I don't keep that in my bug out bag. I keep that in a separate location, but that's going to be one of the things you want to grab and stick in there before you head out. Maybe you don't want to keep an extra $500 in cash in your bug out bag. You keep it at a separate spot. But that's also one of those things you might want to grab on your way out the door. If you've got, some extra cash laying around. I'm not saying everything that you have prepared should be able to be stuffed in this bag, but there are a couple of lightweight things that maybe you don't keep in the bag all the time that you want to have, either a physical checklist or just a mental checklist that you want to grab and stick in there on your way out the door.
Yeah. I would definitely add, some kind of, medications, to that.
Right.
With as your things you're grabbing on the way out, it's, my medication, my, your documents that you think are necessary, and this is the kind of stuff. And like Kevin said, you kind of usually would have some kind of, warning that this is coming. Things are getting bad and you're debating whether to head out, but it's also like even, forest fires, things like that, as they're encroaching, hey, there's been some in the area. Let me get my stuff together and put it together with my bag.
Right.
There's been forest fires. Yeah, they're 40 miles away right now. And then, now they're 2 miles away, but hey, at 40 miles, you could kind of get that stuff together and be like, hey, this is something we're watching. We don't know which way the wind's going to go.
Right.
Let's see what's happening. Or the weatherman saying, hey, the big hurricane's rolling in. Or, shit hit the fan and grocery stores closed 3 days ago. You kind of get that shit together,
Mm-hmm.
It's something you plan for. The zombie virus, outbreak happens, that's something you plan for.
Right.
I'm just saying,
Another one of those things, a lot of people will keep a small amount of ammo in their bug out bag. Some people even keep one of their firearms, handgun or something in their bug out bag. I don't do that.
Right.
That would be something that I would grab on the way. You know what I mean? Maybe
Kevin,
maybe throw an ammo in there.
Because you don't. Right. I would tell you that's because you don't own enough firearms.
I don't have enough spare handguns.
You should be like, yes. You should have so many that you're like, I don't even have anywhere left to keep one. I should put it in the bug out bag just so it's out of my way. I'm just saying.
All right, fair enough.
I don't know. I'm sure in Kevin's case and with a lot of people that you kind of always have one on your person. So is it there? But spare magazines, spare ammo, that makes a difference. And that's one of the things. A lighter bug out bag is now opening the opportunity for you to carry more ammo and more magazines, that are already full. There's nothing wrong with 10 AR mags stuck in the bug out bag. I know you're like, well, Chuck, that kind of weighs a lot. And I say maybe hit the gym a little bit more. Man up.
There you go.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, so you touched on prescription medications. I want to talk about that real quick because prescription medication is not something that you typically are going to keep in your bug out bag. If you have to take, I don't know what chronic issues, people might have, but, most of that stuff is not it's not good to have stored for a year or two. It's not going to be, it's not going to be in great shape if it just sits in your bug out bag all the time, getting ready to go. But you've got a first aid kit, which, I hope you would have a first aid kit in your bug out bag. But maybe going through your medicine cabinet, grabbing those prescription medications, and then whatever else you see, maybe a bottle of Tylenol, maybe multivitamins, maybe whatever, 100 different things. Maybe those are the things you should be grabbing and throwing in there as you're getting ready to go. I like to keep my bug out bag fairly light so that I can do things like that. So I can pick and choose based on a situation that I'll be in. What will go in there. So it's, leaving some space for adding a couple of things is not a terrible idea.
Right. No, I would definitely agree with that. So we got food, shelter. Shelter, I would also add, it's not just about a structure, but you need some kind of, lightweight sleeping bag or, at a minimum, a thermal blanket. It depends on your environment. I definitely wouldn't, if your only sleeping bag is a thermal blanket, make sure it's like a thermal sleeping bag, that completely covers you like a sack that you get inside. You don't want one of those little plastic sheets as your only warmth. You're really making
Let me tell you something.
Choice. That's not practical in any way, right?
Yeah. Let me tell you something. Honestly, those little reflective heat blankets that they sell in, they're great. Everybody loves them because they pack in, real tiny. You can fold them up and they go in a little pouch, and it's great, and they can come in useful. But, the truth of the matter is that's not going to do it for you. That's not, it's great in an emergency, and it's like I said, it's lightweight and it's small. But the truth is that it's not going to do much for you unless you're in a real emergency and you're freezing to death.
Or if the helicopters are coming after you with thermal. Just saying.
There you go.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I bought like 10 of those because you never know when I need to be laying around the backyard with, hiding from helicopters with thermal. Because that's always a thing.
Now, that's true. It comes up quite a bit.
Okay. All right. As long as you're willing to admit it. The other thing, shelter. So we got sleeping bag, we got housing, we got number 3. Shelter also includes having a kind of appropriate clothing. Maybe having a sweatshirt or, something like that. Now, hopefully you can put these things on as you're heading out. If you're in the winter months, we're talking about 3 days. Hopefully you can be wearing the appropriate clothing. Right. But remember, a lot of places it does get a lot cooler at night, and having a sweatshirt or something might be, something worthwhile to have in there, or at least handy, something to think about when you're packing it up.
Right. And when it comes to that sort of stuff, stay away from cotton. Stick towards synthetic fibers, whatever it is. But, cotton really just kind of absorbs moisture and it holds it. And it's really unpleasant to be traveling when you're wet. So just something to keep in mind with that. Another thing I want to touch on while we're talking about shelters and that sort of stuff is having some duct tape. Now, duct tape, you can use it for everything. It's great. Love it. Takes up a lot of space, though, when it's on the roll. So what I do is I just unwrapped it and I just wind it around, something easy like a pen is what I'm using. That way I've got plenty of it, but I don't have a big hole in my my space here that I have to find something to fit in between when I'm trying to pack the bag. It's a small item,
right? And
you can wrap, several feet around something real small like that and unwrap it again and use it. Paracord is another thing. I see a lot of people put rope in their bug out bags, and that can be really useful. But it's really heavy and it's really bulky. So if you go with something light like paracord, you can use that for fishing line. You can use it for shelter building. You can use it for, a million and one ways that, you might not use it for rappelling. You know what I mean? You might not use it for rock climbing or trying to, pull a car out of a ditch, but it has a lot of uses and it's lightweight. It's easy to fit in the bag, and you can get a lot of it in there without really adding much weight to your bag.
Right. No, I like that. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the basics. I mean, I can give you the rundown of what I have in my bag. I'll just zip through the list, but do you have any kind of more category, bigger thing you want to touch on, or?
I would just, I do want to touch on you're going to want basic hygiene stuff. Whether that's a bar of soap, that's wet wipes, toilet paper. Yeah, you're going to want something to keep yourself clean, especially keeping your hands clean before you eat or something like that. I personally, I have a bar of soap that's in a Ziploc bag in there. But I also have a small package of wet wipes, something to keep the old butthole clean.
Right. Butthole's important. Kevin did touch on first aid. I actually have 2 first aid bags in my bug out bag. What I do is I have a regular IFAK, which is individual first aid kit. That's, I guess, more just, we call it an IFAK. What it is really a trauma bag.
And
it's just stuff for trauma. So with that, I have like Quick Clot, I have a tourniquet, I have an Israeli bandage, and the Quick Clot, I like the sponge. They're back and forth on, now I guess the new one is the gauze is the way to go. They're both fine. I have, trying to think, I have a chest seal in there. I have, pretty much that's it. I mean, I have like the utility shears. I actually did spring for one of the Leatherman, the new Leatherman shears. They're pretty awesome. They're not cheap. So yeah, the chest seal, like a high fin chest seal, the Israeli bandage, the tourniquet, the Quick Clot, and that's pretty much it in there. Then I have like a regular traditional first aid kit. Now this was something I got for like $14. It was small, cheap, and easy, and I added some things to it off Amazon or whatever. I put in a quality pair of tweezers, which if you shop around, quality tweezers can be $3 or $4. They don't have to be a big deal.
Right.
I think I spent $12 and I got like 5 pair, of quality tweezers. But I have like triple antibiotic in there. Actually, I think it's probably bacitracin because my wife yells at me that we don't need all 3 antibiotics, and that I'm making germs super resistant or some kind of bullshit. But whatever. I do have some appropriate bandages. I have some Tylenol. I have, just little things. Some, cleaning alcohol wipes. The little obvious first aid stuff, your day-to-day stuff that you don't go in your trauma bag for. So just think of it like that. So basically the rundown for my bag is the 2 first aid kits. I have a Camelback bladder in my bag. I also carry 3 separate little regular small water bottles. I have a Sawyer water filter. I have the little packets of water treatment. I actually just went with, I have like 3 different tarps that I have in there, as well as I have a really compact, lightweight sleeping bag that I have stuffed in there. That's all I have for a shelter for mine. I do have a sweatshirt in there. I do have extra loaded handgun magazines is what I did. I actually just have 4 10-round handgun magazines in there. And then I have, I think, 5 loaded AR magazines in there. This way it's just ready to go. It's all set. I do have like a Leatherman multi-tool in there. I like the rebar. You find the one that works for you. Everybody, has their own preference on that. You may even like Gerber if you make bad choices. I don't know. You do you. I have a skinning knife in there. I have a knife that has like, it's got like a little like fillet knife and a skinning knife. I keep some snare wire in there. I keep an extra flashlight in there. And all this is still pretty lightweight. I have the Stanley Cook set. I told you about the stuff I have in there. I have the smaller one. It's basically kind of like the size of a thermos. And actually not even that tall. It's about that wide. And just simple and easy. On the outside, I have a couple of little things. Like I have paracord that's kind of braided. I went with the heavier, they have that like 500-pound paracord or whatever. They have one that's a little beefier. It costs a little bit more money. It sucks if you're just using it to tie up a shelter. But if you actually have to pull something or, reach a rope down to somebody, the stronger paracord might come in handy. I have these little LED press lights that I have on my bag. And I just have them tied to all like the zippers and stuff. And I have some lighters. I have 2 or 3 lighters in there. I think it's 2. And pretty much that's it. You just want light, easy. I can deal with the problem as it comes up. And I think I mentioned the food. I do have some food. Like I said, I have the big 2,000 calorie. And then I have like 3. Actually, I don't have MREs. I have a 72-hour bag. Food meal bag that I have from my Patriot Supply that I threw in there. And each one of us has one of those. Now, the thing is, the reason I can get away with this is because I have another bug out location that I would plan to go to where I have more and more substantial supplies already hidden out there. So I have a fallback where I can go get more stuff. Because that was it. Originally, I kind of had the bag that I could rebuild the world with. And what I ended up doing is I'm like, hey, I'm just going to store that bag somewhere else.
Right.
And then I can get to that fallback location and then have all those supplies again.
Right.
And, just think about it like that. Because you don't need to rebuild the world out of your bug out bag. The bug out bag is something you need to, hey, crap, I need to get out of here. And I need to be able to make it through some things. But I also need to be able to move, fight, do whatever I need to do. Or if nothing else, move in an extreme hurry. And caching your stuff somewhere at a faraway location. If you have a big enough property, you have a 20-acre property, you can go dig a hole and bury it in a garbage can, back in a back corner where you can come back and retrieve it at a later time. But ideally, you should have a plan with a fallback position, be it going and staying with relatives nearby or having a friend's house kind of nearby. You need to plan. And as you feel that these different areas are getting compromised, if you have 3 houses and your fallback is the 5th house down from yours and your street keeps getting threatened by a rival gang, then maybe that's not the place for your fallback. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The gang may come take over your neighborhood or whatever. Then you plan further away and you make other arrangements. But the bottom line, you just need it somewhere where you can come back in cover and get back to your cached position. And like I said, hopefully you have friends, you have something somewhere nearby that you can fall back to. Hey, I only have to get to my buddy's house if things get bad here, and that's 5 miles away. Now, if you're worried about forest fires coming and rolling through, and 5 miles away is going to be in that same forest fire area,
right,
that's probably not your go-to for it. You got to think about what you're preparing for, what you're most concerned about with your scenario, and come up with a solution that, but a bug out is an emergency. I need to get out of here, and it's got to get me through right now. And it just should get you back to your regular supplies. And you should really think about things and approach it more from that angle.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it is one of those things that if you're bugging out and you don't have a location to bug out to, you might want that end of the world bag. That might be
Right.
your only option. But if you have a place you're planning on getting to, then having a lighter bug out bag is probably the best option. And keeping it light and then packing it for that specific emergency when that emergency comes up, with specific stuff. If you're worried about a hurricane, right, you might want to think about, getting your ponchos, getting a bunch of garbage bags. Personally, I keep in my bug out bag several pairs of socks in a gallon Ziploc bag. And I keep a couple of things in those gallon Ziploc bags because they're reusable and they're great for keeping things dry. You might put your food in there and like I said, some socks, some underwear, some stuff like that. Having wet feet and traveling with wet feet is not pleasant. So,
right.
Again, it's one of those things where you want to plan for the emergency that you're going to be dealing with, but you also want to have the options that you can change things out depending on what that emergency might be.
No, that definitely, is sound.
Yeah. Now, just keep in mind though, when you're moving like that, if you're walking, running, carrying kids, riding driving in a car and having to get out, move trees and things like that, you're going to be burning a lot more calories than you normally would. You're going to want more than 2,000. You're going to want to plan for 3,500 calories per day in this sort of emergency situation. So when it comes to food, you want those calorie dense foods. And like Chuck said, you probably want to have that stuff in your bag ready to go when it's time. You don't want to have to start, packing out the whole refrigerator into your bag because you don't have anything in there, planned out that's calorie dense.
Right. And that's it. And everybody needs to have their own flashlight in it. Everybody should have a lighter in it, every family member, and they should know where their bag is and be ready to go. Now, that may be that you all keep them in the hallway closet, all hanging, or maybe everybody has it in their room and ready to get their own stuff. And this is something you should be going back once a year, opening it up at a minimum, opening it up, checking through it, and make sure that nothing's, leaked out, nothing's gotten damaged. This stuff matters. Like I said, this, this is, it's the rare, unforeseen thing that, is going to, that it's something you don't plan for, and that's what makes it, ready for an emergency.
Right.
That's why we're preppers. That's why we plan. We think ahead because, hey, how could we do this that, it's going to work out? Now, hopefully, I've been working on our website, trying to get that stuff back together. And if you guys head over to preppingbadass.com, you can sign up for our email list where we'll I think I can put together the list of what's in the bug out bag and include that in one of the initial emails, that we send out. But if you sign up for the email list, I'll give you access. We had put together a course about 3 or 4 years ago that basically kind of covered all things prepping, how to set up security for your house, how to deal with basic first aid, how to deal with, putting together a bug out bag. Now, the bug out bag we talk about in the course is kind of that everything in the kitchen sink bag. But, hey, teach their own. Now you have an idea for a more complex bag, and you have an idea for, a simpler bag. But we set it up so that course is now offered for free for you guys. All you have to do is go in, sign up for the email list, and we'll give you access to that course. I should have it all set by the time that this episode drops. If I don't, be patient with me. It might take another week, and then you're going to be cursing me, and I'll be yelling at you next week to try and sign up. but I think I have it together, so be patient with me if I don't. If you do sign up with the email list, I'll make sure that at least an email goes out with access to the course, and then you'll be able to get right back into it. Otherwise, what else I can do is, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you guys remember, we had those badass Bowie knives that Spanny Blades put together for us.
Right.
They're Damascus steel, and they're nice. And they have that custom handmade grip, and he made nice sheaths for them. I think we're going to give out one of those every month to somebody who's subscribed to the email list. So you might want to check out the email list, and and I'll pick a random, person out of the list every month that we can send one of those knives as long as the knives last. I think we have about 4 more Bowie knives, and we have 2 or 3 like little Skinner knives. So we'll kind of mix it up. Maybe we'll do like a Bowie knife, a Skinner knife, a Bowie knife, and so on, and take it out there for a while. But basically, we'll shoot out things, related to the different episodes, maybe some different products, or if I see something cool at Palmetto or something like that, and I want to share a link, just kind of keep you guys up to date on things that are happening, where we're going to be. We think we're going to do some events and some cool things, but there should be a lot of good stuff coming. So you might want to get on the list and see if you can't get access to all the information as it comes out. Otherwise, if you could leave a review, maybe tell a friend, maybe share the podcast, invite people, to go to the Facebook group, that kind of thing. Just spread the word. And, the more people that are prepared out there, the better we can be. So with that, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
The Survival and Basic Badass Podcast is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.